No pressure, Hans. There's lots of people joining today. And just to confirm, this webinar is live on YouTube now, and it is being recorded. No pressure, Hans. There's lots of people joining today. Okay, great. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm very excited to host this webinar today, the first in our series for 2022. And we had a record number of registrations. Just before we went live, I noticed that we had registrations from 32 countries, if my count was correct. So Hans, are you able to speak all 32 languages?
Yeah, I wish.
So Encona is a globally operating consulting, auditing, and training and technology firm. And we work primarily in the automotive sector, but not exclusively. And what we do is we get many queries, especially around quality management systems. And we compile these FAQs to decide our topics and the lineup for that year. So today's topic being how to implement effective management reviews. And as most of you probably know, if it's possible to have a favorite auditor, he's certainly everybody's favorite auditor, the founder and chairman of the board of Encona, Hans. Whereabout are you, Hans? We can't keep track of you in your travels.
I'm currently in Romania and Europe, believe it or not.
Thank you for making time to join us today, Hans.
Is it?
Before we kick into the questions, just a couple quick housekeeping areas. I see everybody's already gone ahead and used the chat function. Go ahead, chat away, let us know where you're from, what country, what company, etc. We will have a Q&A section at the end of the webinar. Please, if I could ask you to utilize the Q&A function that you'll see on the bottom of your screen. It makes it a little bit easier to keep track and make sure we answer all the questions. I have also released a poll, which you should be able to see on the bottom of your screen. Please go ahead and vote, and 2 quick questions. And I can confirm both questions are completely anonymous. So without further ado, Hans, the IATF rules, IATF 16949 guidelines, are the rule book for the automotive industry, and they contain many requirements. One of them is the top management responsibilities specifically to implement effective quality management system reviews. Being an IATF or third-party IATF auditor, you get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly worldwide. What's your thoughts? What is happening out there with regards to management reviews, and are they effective?
Well, thanks, Taryn. Hello to everybody out there. I hope I can provide some clarification to this topic of yours today. Yeah, well, unfortunately, the conducting management review has been and currently is a little bit of a concern. When you ask me specifically as to what is the current situation out there that we observe around the world is, well, I would say problem number 1 is that top management is not taking full ownership of these processes and events. And so they're predominantly delegated to a quality management system representative or to a quality manager or department to basically drive that process. This I would believe, and I would put on number 1 position. So management is just not coming enough to the Secondly, second biggest problem I see out there is that these management reviews are predominantly conducted and run like an operations meeting. And this is what the world needs to understand. A quality management system review, as identified by ISO 9001, and IATF 16949 is not an operations review. And I will also elaborate on that a little bit later. We also prepared a couple of slides for that. Problem number 3, I would like to say, is just a lack of lead time for such events. If I get to speak to managing directors or top dogs out in the industry, they would say something between 3 and 4 hours. If I then take the quality managers aside and said, what's the real lead time? You would probably get an information of 1 to 2 hours. So let's give it a fair span between 1 and 4 hours that a management review takes to be conducted. And I don't think anyone needs to be a rocket scientist to understand that it is virtually impossible, very impossible, to review all the required needs and expectations for this event and for this scope in such a short period of time. So that makes it rather ineffective. And maybe last but not least, if I might bring this in, also extremely important is the fact that the process owners are not effectively enough included in this process. So as we all know, the 2016 version of the IATF has implemented the alignment and implementation of process owners. With that role came quite a variety of roles and responsibilities that are unfortunately not stipulated in the book per se. So I would give this to the organizations that it might be a little bit tricky to find the information as to what the real responsibilities are. But there you will find then for sure very, very management review related tasks that should be fulfilled for this event. And yeah, so those would be the four specific problem areas that I would like to bring forward to explain as to why these management reviews are not conducted effectively enough. Let's put it that way. And I also would like to point out that it could be a little bit misleading for 2 reasons. The IATF book clearly identifies required inputs that need to be considered for such an event. And if you look into these required input information, there you will find performance data, process outputs, targets, dashboards, audit reports, customer claims. So there's a variety of information that an organization would typically also use for an ops review, if that makes sense. So I would admit to an extent that this can be a little bit misleading, but there's something went terribly wrong in interpreting this particular requirement basically since decades, because a management review is not an IATF specific requirement that you will find in the ISO 9001 or any other management standards since many years. But we need to understand is what the scope of the management review is. And an operations review are conducted for the bigger corporations. They collect data and review data daily, weekly, monthly. Small and medium enterprise, they usually come up with their monthly quality reports, operations reports, however they call them. So top management doesn't really understand as to why we need over and above these operational meetings that we do anyway, daily, weekly, monthly. Why do we have to do over and above the management review once per year, as IATF states. And I would understand that. And this is what needs to be said. The difference lays in the scope. They have similar input informations to look at, okay? But the scope, the output of an operations meeting versus a management review, that's where it differs. The operations meeting, you usually come up with a corrective action management approach because you find out that certain KPIs in your dashboard did not meet the targets. So you most of the times intend to look for corrective actions within the existing quality management system framework. The management review has a different scope. And the reason why we are looking at the same or similar performance information is simply because all these performance records and information from all the processes are produced, are coming out of your system, of your management system. Okay, but in the output, and this is where the book is clear, is you should consider all these performance data and customer feedbacks and audit results and whatsoever to draw a conclusion as to what needs to be necessarily changed in our system, or where are the potential opportunities to improve the system, not only on the output side, which is the effectiveness, but also on the input side, which is the efficiency. Okay? So we're looking at similar information, but we draw different conclusions. So we're not driving a corrective action management process to get the dashboard green again, from red or yellow, whatever, within the existing system. We are purely focusing on the changes and the needs of changes to the complete management system. And this is
going to brighter green.
And this is a very fundamental difference between the two, but it feels like, and it appears like that this segregation between an ops meeting and a management review meeting has not been interpreted, if I may call it that, the most correct way in terms of IATF and ISO 9001. Hence, it is too much focus still on an operational review more than on focusing on system changes. Because, and this is also something one needs to understand, and this is very critical, because when I talk to 10 managing directors of 10 different companies, from small and medium enterprise all the way to corporates and OEMs, it doesn't matter really. And I say, sir, just between you and me, if I would take this current management review report away from you, would there run anything better or worse from the tomorrow on in your organization? And they all say, nearly all say, let's say 8 out of 10 will say, well, when do you take it away? And that's pretty alerting, because we continue doing things following an incomplete or even wrong interpretation of a requirement. It often serves the purpose, and people are very honest about that. We have to do it because a certification auditor needs to look at it. So we're basically ticking a box to show something, rather than sinking our teeth into this requirement and re-engineer the interpretation of it to make that a useful and extremely powerful tool. And it is so powerful because we are living in an ever-changing marketplace, product portfolio place, customer portfolio place, ever-changing. So the criticality comes in, and we see this out there, that the management system is not running at the same pace in covering this ever-changing circumstances that that impact an organization today. And that's why we often see procedures, and when we do audits, we come year by year by year, same procedures in place, same concepts in place. And this is very, very crucial. The quality management system review, together with the internal audit program, are the core drivers of your management system innovation. Be ready for the future, because we already talk about Internet of Things. We talk about transitioning into an Industry 4.0 environment. We talk about all these technology improvements and necessities that comes with new requirements from the markets, from the clients. But the management system also needs to develop and transfer to a QMS 2.0, if you want to call it that. And the management review is the top driver, even before the internal audit program, to make this happen and align the improvements and the innovation and the development of the system in the same pace, covering these everlasting changes that organizations are confronted with. And this is very crucial. So those are the main issues that we see out there. The quality managers, this is a typical approach that we still, and this is a sad situation, we get to see out there, is that the quality management system driver's seats has been delegated to a quality management system representative, and these functions are still out there in the organizations, although this function has been eliminated in 2016 already by the IATF, because that function is completely in conflict with the roles and responsibilities of a process owner. Okay, but still we have them out there, and these ladies and gentlemen out there giving the very best. Okay, so they usually prepare these management review reports, and most of the times they also talk us auditors through that document, because they're the creator. They know where the information is. But in all honesty, we were using a lot of time and efforts to prepare such reports with all these operations information, which is not a requirement even. The requirement is that it needs to be documented, but we don't need to document all the performance information that are required to be considered at. And the real juice of documentation and the real requirement of that is, what are the opportunities for improvement? What are the needs and the change needs for the system to drive that innovation? And there we see too often red and yellow dashboards, and when it comes to the conclusion, any changes needed to the system, then it says none. And this is where the scope falls flat for this so important and so powerful process. Another thing is that it's mostly handled as an event. Yeah, management comes and the quality manager or the QMR prepares the management review report, and there might be a briefing session with the top management or not. And then it just goes its way. So the process owners are just clearly not coming forward in that respect, and they have a very, very important role to play. I will elaborate a little bit later on that when it comes to the process. Management review should be looked at as a process and not as a single event.
Yeah.
Because there's just too many faculties and too many people and too many departments that basically have to be involved and included, I see it very, very difficult to run this as an event when it comes to the question, is it effective or not? So it should be considered a process, if I might call it that.
Yeah, sure. And another thing, Hans, in preparing for this webinar, I think yesterday I said to you, as somebody who didn't come from within the automotive industry, having worked through these guidelines before, these specific guidelines, a lot of these requirements are actually just good practice. It's not that they needed to be specified to me via some rule book. It's good practice and good business processes. Definitely not.
Taryn, I would entirely agree with you. What needs to be considered is that both ISO 9001 and IATF are giving us a book with requirements, but if you carefully read that, it will only tell you what you have to do. Under no circumstances, the books tell you how you have to. And this is where the problem lays, because now you need very experienced quality management system architects, if I might call them that, okay, that come up with the right, appropriate, effective interpretation to convert that, what needs to be done, how we're going to do it, considering the complexity of our processes and products and customer portfolios and technologies, whatever comes with. And that's where the difficulty lays. I stick to the guns here with regards to management system reviews. The combination of that interpretation has been done apparently wrongly or not completely effectively, together with the fact that the top dogs don't take ownership of this, but delegate it more to the quality functionalities, is the key issue as to why we have that situation that we have right now. So top dogs must come to the party. There's no other way around it. And the reason why many of them don't do is also explainable, by the way, because this elite group of people that we call top management, whenever they do a strategic decision and before they implement something from the strategy paper, they start to analyze, they start to investigate, they try to understand what we do according to our strategy papers. So they analyze the information, the whole 9 yards, in order to support their decision process. And this is basically what ISO 9001 already says, or IATF says. The decision to implement such a system, a management system, if I call it that, should be the product, the output of a strategic management decision, because if it's a strategic decision of the top management, then you know that people sink their teeth into this topic and analyze and understand and read and follow up and read up and consult and do all this so they know what's coming. But what if that decision has been made for the top dogs in the plant? Either by a customer that says, if you want to ship anything to me, you have to have it, or in big plants that are incorporated in the corporate world, decision made by the corporate head office to say it's a new plant, you have to go IATF. So what if that decision has been made for them? There's no more natural motivation to analyze and read and understand really what's behind all that. And I honestly believe this is where it went completely wrong. And this is why we had that shift of responsibility into a quality department or an individual, even depending on the size of the organization, And those poor individuals are just trying to save and rescue the whole organization. Comes a customer for an audit, comes a certification audit. These people just try to spoon feed and babysit the whole organization, which is also, I understand why they do that. I really do, because it's their responsibility. It's just been delegated. Unfortunately, I have to say that this has never succeeded. It does not succeed, and it will never fly. So also all the quality managers that might listening into this session here out there, Top Dogs was the biggest change in the latest 2016 version. The second biggest affected individual or department is you people, because you must stop spoon feeding and babysitting the organization. Elsewise, your process owners will never come forward because they just feel too comfortable having you guys around. And you will be left, if you not already are, left in frustration because you don't have the support from the top, you don't have the support from the bottom, and now you're squashed somewhere in between and still sit with your responsibility. So other than frustration, there's not much more that can come through with this approach. And there is so many areas that a management review actually should spit out, if you want to call it that. What are, for example, internal audits? Internal audits is also something where the quality managers and the QMRs are struggling with, simply because there's also no buy-in from the top, usually, in most of the cases. In all the cases that I get to see, it's not really the greatest desire for the departments. So you again squashed in between. That makes the internal audit program extremely ineffective. No matter how good you plan and conduct the audits, what you get feedback from the audited areas is most of the times containment actions, not real corrective actions. So that whole internal audit program is in too many cases in itself very, very ineffective. But what do you find ever year for year? Is there find anything in the management review? Is there anything that needs to be changed in that approach? You hardly ever find anything. So we keep on doing this process year for year for year, and still year for year for year. Nobody likes it really. Okay. But we're not willing to change. We're not willing to tackle it. We are not willing to sink our teeth and say, what needs to be changed to make this powerful audit program more effective? You hardly ever find anything in a management review. Look at enterprise risk management, which is a new requirement from 2016. You can go to any company, they all look the same. Does that not require any changes, any needs? Then you have corporate risk registers, and then you have the plants, and they don't talk to one another, but you don't find anything in a management review report, hardly ever. What about process management? IATF 2016 version is not interested in departments. IATF only thinks and talks in process. Still yet, we have this departmental thinking, those silos out there where you have those kings and queens sitting in the departments, defending their areas against intruders, and start playing ping pong, whose fault it is. IATF is not interested in that. But does that ever consider any improvements or changes in the system? I hardly ever find anything in a management review. And this is what should actually come out. Customer-specific requirements rollout. Is not a single audit where we don't see any failings in the rollout process of customer-specific requirements. It is not enough to have the documents and that the quality manager or quality department knows about them. How do you roll it out into the organization? And never-ending non-conformity field. does that ever consider any changes? Or do we just keep on going year by year by year, the same approach? That's the power of the management review. This is what should come out. Process efficiency review. We are checking the living daylight out of dashboards. Targets, which is extremely important. I don't disagree. But who is considering the process efficiency? What's going into the process? Is that process, as we do it today, is that still efficient by having all these technologies in place? A practical example, I just had another training, not here, but and they still work with these papers of feedbacks, and the delegates fill out all these papers, and then the HR generalist collects all these papers, and then it starts computerizing because you have to evaluate all that. In the 21st century, are we serious? All these masses of papers, how we record in the process, in the same breath of talking about Internet of Things and Industry 4.0. So the system needs to pick up the pace and get that grade of innovation to follow that ever-changing market and customer and product portfolios that every organization is confronted with. And management systems, therefore, are too static. Problem-solving approaches. There's so much training and development. How do we analyze knowledge that the organization needs for all the news that come in? Every company I come, TSEX, you probably heard all about that. That has now been brought into by customers because they're requiring. And then we look at one another and said, oh, there's another new things we have to do. And there's no changes in the system needed to gather all these information and news before the customer confronts us with that. You don't find anything in a management review. And there is ever, FMEA and control plans don't talk to one another. Special characteristics don't talk to one another. And every single audit, we have the same issues. And there's no changes considered. We do corrective actions often, but within the same framework of the system, if that makes sense. But the management review wants you to be innovative, which is also a requirement if you look into employee motivation and empowerment. And we have those best idea concepts, yes, but that requirement involves a lot more. It actually speaks about promoting innovation for the management system, promoting new technologies. And that never finds its way into improvement ideas, opportunities, or even needs to change the management system. It is just too much based, for my liking, based on a corrective action program. We look at the dashboards, we look at the performance data, and then we run a corrective action program within the existing system to find our way back to a green dashboard. And then in between, you find those things that we are really looking for. All I'm saying is, and I'm not saying that there is nothing in there that is fruitful for exactly that scope. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is it's not effective enough because the focus is not to this particular improvement and identification of needs, simply because it's not done systematically, starting up and building up as a process where the process owners have to do a very, very significant pre-assessment, if I may call it that, which then gets fed into the management review to draw the conclusions and also decision. That's the difference. That's where you get the effectiveness, and this is where you get also all relevant aspects of every process. remember, an internal audit is also extremely powerful. We know that, but it takes also place once per year, and it's only based on samples. The management system review is every process owner comes to the party and reviews the process that he owns, including the top dog, because he's owning management processes, okay? Because the changes are related also to strategic changes, to vision, mission changes, technology changes. That all comes from the strategic planning. This is what the top dogs have to do themselves, but the rest from all the customer-oriented processes like operations or development, but also the support process. Yeah. So IT, HR, quality, all the support processes, purchasing, they all come to the party and do a very significant pre-assessment of what are the needs, not only for the changes, but also for resources, and then feed that assessment, pre-assessment, if you want to call it that, into that management review, so that the top dogs, together with the process owners, or interactive. I can also show how Ancona does that worldwide now. It's an extremely interactive system today. So you don't necessarily have to come together for a meeting with either the top dog and the quality manager, or in better cases with the process owners. Nobody says that. No, it's not a requirement. So you also got to think forward and use technologies and make that an interactive approach. I think we found a very practical way, and it works very well in Ancona. I'm going to let you have a look a little bit later.
If we can share that, I think that would be good.
We'll have a look into this. And there's just too many areas, PPAP processes, supply development. So there's so many areas that should be tackled by the process owners, okay, and then fed into the management review. So currently we're just reviewing a couple of hours based on a report that has been provided, versus the effective way should be is full integration of the process owners. And do the pre-assessments, come up with their conclusions, and feed that into the final, if you want to call it that, management review, where decisions are made for changes, and where we pick up opportunities for improvement, because there might sometimes also be investments necessary. So there's also a decision process that comes with this management review. So this is what I see out there, and from that perspective, if to summarize that, I also, and what is that management system? Maybe that's something I'm going to quickly share something with you. That's also often a question as to what determines a management system. That's I don't know if you can all see this here. So we try to bring this all together here. So all these aspects that you see here on this slide, this is basically defining a management system. It's your policies, it's your procedures, it's your scope, it's all your interested parties that come into. That's your customer specific requirements. So the way you map your process, your identified processes, and all that together creates and defines your management system. But that management system cannot stay static when the marketplace and the customer requirements and the product portfolios are ever changing. There's no ways that your management system may stay static as we often see that. And there's just not too much happening, or the ones that have the better approach, not effectively enough, incomplete, if you want to call it that. But really, most of the times, we just have a wrong perception to this management system reviews. simply because we drive it too much as an ops review, and that's really what makes the difference. Does that make sense so far?
That makes sense, and I think that's the topic again in preparing for this that I struggled with, the definition between management and ops reviews, and to me also the definitions between corrective actions and improvements. And I think you've driven that home for me. I hope for the attendees today too. Nice no holds barred explanations as usual, Hans.
Yeah. Maybe we use that time a little bit. There's also something very relevant where I believe where interpretations went wrong.
Yeah.
Before 2016, we had an IATF rules book, if that is the right terminology, that incorporated the 9001 requirements plus the add-on IATF requirements before 2016. So the organizations were really focusing on all of them, the 9001 and the IATF specific, automotive specific requirements. In the 2016 versions, IATF made not a very wise decision, but although I understand why they made that decision, if you're interested in that. So the IATF book doesn't contain the 9001 requirements anymore. It just has the clause number and it refers to look at or see ISO 9001. But that is most of the times overread. So we're reading IATF as standalone requirements. And this is very dangerous simply because the understanding of a management system, the principles of management systems and of quality is stipulated in the 9001, which is a complete separate book. Okay, so if you don't understand the 9001 book, you more than likely treat the IATF book as add-on, and they are hanging somewhere mid-air without any context. And this is very, very dangerous. So I would like to advise everybody out there to not only read the IATF book, but always read it together with all the requirements, because that really gives you the inside view of the understanding of the structure, of the benefits and the build-up and the foundation of the management system and its principles. As whereas the IATF book only relates to certain chapters in that PDCA, but you cannot read them without the context of the 9001. Makes very little to no sense. So whenever we have that issue, please also follow up the 9001 and have it ready and focus on those requirements in the same in-depth as you do it in the IATF area. And once again, top dogs must come to the party. It's a quality manager's or QMR's responsibility to break the ice there. And nobody else will come forward for that. That's the expectation we have on these functionalities. It's not an easy job, I would more than happily admit, but that's what the expectation is. We need those people out there that break the ice and in a professional manner and implement all these needed changes and requirements. At the end of the day, to benefit your own organization. That's bottom line what it is. There's not a single requirement in there that wouldn't make sense or would not be designed to serve a purpose and help organizations to become a better company. But we must also stop, friends, we must also stop in ticking boxes and getting used to it because also we got away with it, even with certification auditors. I give you that. I give you that. We get away with it all the time. But that's not your job. Your job is to come up with the right interpretation to get the maximum benefit out of these requirements by interpreting those requirements in such a way as that it does deliver the benefit for the organization, not to tick a box for an auditor. or a customer that might come stop by every now and then. So how have we done this? Maybe, yeah, Terry, maybe this is an interesting one. I'm going to share this real quick. Folks, before I do that, I'm going to show you how we do it in Ancona, in the global group. Our complete, we call it EOS, Ancona Operating System. The quality management system is nothing else but an operating system. It covers the whole organization. It's not made for the quality department. And we have a complete paperless operation system implemented throughout the global operations. And this is also this also came out of management reviews, because technology changes is also part of the definition of the 4 changes. Technology change, okay? So those 4s are for the vision change. We have operational changes. We have policy changes, and then we have technology change. Those are the 4 main change identifications. And this is also came out of ours, and Taryn, you will confirm, we just had our global meeting last in Germany. And I'm going to quickly show you the concept of how it could be done. It's your decision down the line, but oops, no, this one. So we have this is a system that we use. It's called Monday.com. All our global business operations and processes are tracked, and all our procedures that you still have uploaded are all incorporated in this interactive communication system. You will not find anybody in Ancona that works according to a procedure. I'll just, yeah, here's your EOS, that's the Ancona operating system. And there we have basically also, as you have it mapped in your process map, our custom-oriented process. So these are all the processes that we've identified. Then we have management processes. There you will see also the management review per se is also identified as a process and not as an activity or as an event. And then we have our support processes. There you see that they're all assigned with process owners. Okay. And what we then do is we just filtered one out to not reveal here our whole management review. Basically what's happening is that every process owner, as you can see here, has its specific board, okay, as a pre-review of their processes they own for an input for that management review. So that I can, with my executive managers around the world, go through what's the proposal, because a top manager cannot review the management system by himself in any case. That's virtually impossible. So we have quarterlies. This is maybe also something that's of interest. ISO 9001 doesn't give you, only says in planned intervals. IATF is a little bit more precise and says minimum once per year. But don't hang on to the books too much, and get a feeling for how many reviews should you do, and make it an interactive process. So this whole approach here came out of a management review. So Q4, this is not done yet. So this is Q1. So basically how it works is, based on the requirements, these are also, for argument's sake, for this internal audit process. That's what it is. The process owner, in this particular case, Philippine, she goes through what is expected. Those are the KPIs, avoid repeat failures. Then she does that performance review in that process. I don't want to reveal everything. It's too much IP in here, just to get the concept. Then she comes up already with the team. Okay, with the team, with what are the necessary the changes, and then what is the resource need? Or what did I do now?
A little bit back towards the left.
Yeah, because that thing is in the way. Here we go.
Okay.
Does the performance review. She comes up with the necessary changes and improvements in this column here, which is now actually fed in as an input to the executive board. Because who else than the process owner is capable of coming up with the proposals for improvements for the process that he owns and for necessary changes and resources. But it comes with also with costs. And so she's reviewing her process with the teams. She's coming up with the necessary changes that should come out of a management review. And this is where the interpretation is wrong, because it says top management should do that. Top management is by far not capable to do that on a process level, and clearly not in 1 to 4 hours. So that's fed in now. That's the March 22. That's the management review we had. We went through this. We approved the majority, but it can also be a decline. What was that actually? Yeah, we've just opened Ancona, Canada, and opened also an entity in Romania. And let's see what the process owner wanted actually. She wanted extra resources because there's too many regions now, because we have currently one group auditor. So she was asking actually for a second one, which makes sense. Our decision was then to, our decision was declined. And then we also make a statement, can Romania need to start up the operation? They're brand new. So the audit doesn't make sense yet with next period. So we're going to follow up on that on the next management review. So although the proposal made a lot of sense and we're going to do that, it's a little bit too early. And then it's going to be moved into also in a follow-up. Where's the follow-up?
The Q2 one.
Yeah, for Q2 one, it will be followed up. So basically, folks, bottom line, what is due, the process owners are doing their pre-study. They must come up with the needs and expectations and improvements. That is a clear responsibility of a process owner. And I can show you that also on the presentation. Because you won't find it in the book, and maybe that is interesting for you. I put them all together. Here, this is what IATF understands as the process owner duties. But that requirement was also wrongly interpreted. So basically what most of the organizations did is they nominated the existing department managers and said, now you're the process owner. So life is easy, but maybe not that easy. But that's a different topic. I think we elaborated on that on a different webinar. But managing continual improvement, that's management review, process management, organize feedbacks of process review results for the management review, organize the communication of results of effectiveness. This is what we do, and efficiency for management reviews. So there's a lot of responsibilities that the process owners need to come up with anyway to drive this process. And it finally leads into the management review where the top management comes together. We don't even do this anymore. We just combined this management review last week in Germany because we had our annual conference. That's why we combined it. But management review in Ancona is an absolute interactive process. There's no meetings and there's no this and that. It's an interactive process by using technology that is available today in the market inexpensively. But the management system review should drive that process of innovation of the system, and not only the product portfolios and the customer portfolios and responding to the market changes. The system must grow with those circumstances that you get confronted with and impacts that come from the market in very, very difficult times. This is the whole story. And maybe last but not least, we're coming a little bit to the end. Share this. if you want to summarize it from my side. I don't know, Taryn, are you going to upload also this presentation here?
Absolutely, as usual, the recordings and presentation will all be.
But there's a lot of IP in there, so I'm just saying.
You'll confirm what will be uploaded.
Yeah, no, we do that. So if you want to bring this in the PDCA circle of this management review process, this is to summarize from my side, unless you have questions. So of course, there's a lot of things. You have a scope in your manual. This is the DNA of your organization. You have those internal, external factors, your interested parties. You need to identify all your processes that you need according to Chapter 4.4. You do a risk assessment. Do a risk assessment done by the process owners for every process, and you assign those process owners that I would consider the planning phase, but the real doing is now to review those process performances and objectives, the efficiency of the process, that's what's going as an input, the risk register, and then identify and document those improvement opportunities and change requests. But that is done by the process owner, not in the 2 hours meeting with the boss man. And then, of course, evaluate the change requests, especially when there is cost implication and investments and stuff like that. It's not always just the change of a procedure. And only then you lead it into the executives. They review and decide upon, as I showed you on our system, on those opportunities, and based on the process owner proposals. And then they do, of course, an action verification before they release CapExes and money. And then you go into the change management system by updating what makes your management system, and then reassess and update, of course, your risk register. And important is who is doing that. The planning is usually done by the quality managers together with the process owners. The doing in this PDCA, that is a process owner duty. It cannot be done by the top dog. It's impossible. It will never fly. And only then, when these pre-assessments, as I showed you, are done, then you can move it into the top management final, where you go through, get a verification. And once everything is ticked off and approved, then again, quality together with the process owners work on the amendments of the management system that is defined, as I showed you earlier, by your policies and procedures.
Yep.
So this would be, Taryn, my 2 cents as to where the current situation is with regards to management review. And also my 2 cents, giving you some practical inputs as how you should or could do it. The decision is always with the organization, of course. And and I hope this brought some clarification to this topic.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely pulled quite a few potential solutions out there, which is important. Hans, as usual, we're running long. Do you have time now to handle a few questions? And for any attendees, we did plan to end now at 5 o'clock South African time, but if you'd like to hang on a little longer, maybe we can do about 15 minutes over.
Sure.
And if anybody does need to leave, please feel free to email us at Encona. I'm on marketing@encona.org. Feel free to email us any questions and we'll always come back to you. Hans, you actually already answered a couple of questions that came through in the Q&A. So I've marked them off, but here's a nice, simple, practical one. What documented information is it that you actually look for related to a management review when you're conducting an IATF audit?
Well, they're basically, jump into this presentation. I didn't even show everything here. If you look at this slide here, these are required inputs. These are required inputs that shall, but It doesn't say you must use them. They shall be considered. Okay. So this is a combination of the ISO 9001 and the IATF required input information that shall be considered to draw your conclusions as to what opportunities for improvement and what change needs do we have by looking at these, because all these information come out of your current system. So it makes more than sense to look at them to draw a conclusion what needs to be changed.
That flexibility again, it's about finding a system that also works for your organization. It's not these black and white rules that say this is how you have to do it.
Yeah, as I said earlier, the standard doesn't tell you how you have to do it. That makes it so complicated to interpret it the right way and the most effective. It only tells you what you have to do, and it tells you you have to do a management review and you have to consider these information, and the output should be those opportunities for improvement. But in between, it doesn't tell you how you have to do that. And that's why I was hoping that I could give you a little bit of an inside view of how technology can be used to make it an interactive process and not in the same manner as we do it since 28 years, since ISO 9001 exists. Never changed. It's incredible. Machiavelli already said that. Machiavelli said people do things because we've always done it that way. We don't like to change. But if the management review is not done effectively, where is the innovation driver to develop the system further to drive you into the future with? It's critical. And that's why I'm not surprised again why this topic came into your FAQ stats analysis and why you asked for this webinar.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see how the topics interrelate. As you mentioned, we did do the process ownership webinar last year as well, and how they all work in with one another. So I think we've got maybe a bit of a misunderstanding of, and the next question is, how long will a management review be considered to be effective in a company before it's outdated?
So how long should a management review?
How long is it effective in a company? So this is 5 or 10 years. I think what we're trying to get across is that it is a continual process. It's not something documented now for 5 years' time. Correct?
No, the requirement is clear. The ISO 9001 says at planned intervals. So whatever that planning means. But now the IATF overrules the 9001, where it says it shall be conducted minimum once per annum.
Mm-hmm.
It's a requirement you have to meet. So when your auditors come back, for argument's sake, he wants to see the last year's management review. So you get exactly, the minimum is 1 year. And Kona, as I showed you, we do it on a quarterly because it's a permanently interaction with the process owners, with the executive board. And that makes perfect sense because I don't have to wait for a year till I feed all the inputs that I might come across at this day in March. I want to interact with my executives. And this is the board. This is where I feed the contents in, and quarterly it will be reviewed, decision made, passed or declined. And there's a complete different approach, but we need to change the mindset of the top dogs to support this, and also the ones of the process owners, because elsewise the quality manager will always sit in between and he will be trapped. No support from top, no support from bottom, so do it yourself. And this is why they fade away in frustration. Guys, and please don't take this personal when I say this. I'm not talking about you personally. I'm talking about the whole area of experiences that we gather. So please don't feel offended when I say that. And when you say we have this under control, just skip my quotes.
You always say it directly. A question from Martin O'Malley. And do you see the same issues in other industries, or is it automotive specific?
Every industry. Every. It's since 28 years. Whenever, I think 89, whenever the first 9001 came out, I have to follow up. I never see different management review. Machiavelli principle.
Yeah.
Always done it that way. This must stop, people. This must stop. We need to innovate the management system towards a 2.0 version. Else, this ever coming changes from the markets, your system will not back you up anymore. It will collapse, and that's going to be very, very dangerous.
Yeah. Thanks. A question from Jacob. How to access a manual on performing a management review?
How to access, sorry?
A manual on how to conduct a management review. Is there such a thing as a manual on how to conduct a management review?
Yes, you're going to upload this in the presentation. This gives you the whole roadmap for an effective one. In Google, no, I haven't found one. There might be, I wouldn't know. But if you look at all the forums, it's described as we currently do it. I haven't seen any modern state-of-the-art approach that's an innovative grade to get the buy-in because of that interaction with the process owners. I haven't found it, but you can use this presentation. We haven't flicked through all the slides, but you can use that as a roadmap if you wish. So it's all yours.
Perfect. Hans, from Anna. Are process owners completely responsible for their processes, or should top management have a say in it? For example, for setting proper KPIs and checking the results.
That's a bloody good question. Here's the thing, and this is where it went wrong again. The requirement says it's a top management responsibility to assign process. That's the first thing. That's what they've done. Secondly, they need to make sure that they understand the roles and responsibilities. And thirdly, they must make sure that they can fill the post, that they're capable and qualified. If I ask 10 process owners, different ones, I get 11 different answers about what is the roles and responsibilities. So they're very fast. So that process owner preparation, which and understand, what was it, Anna? And please understand, the reason why the process owners came to the party here is not to create another function. The basic idea of IATF was to break down those silo buildings that we have out there, those departmental thinking, and change it to a process management thinking, process approach. But a department head cannot manage each and every process that he identified. If you go into an HR department, and back in the days, they said, well, I got an HR process. But in reality, he has a payroll process, he has a training and development process, he has a recruitment process, he's got several processes that he needs to identify within the department. And to manage all these processes, a department head cannot do. So the idea of IATF was because look at our organization charts. Our organization chart, this is how you run an army. So you got the general, the top dog on top, then you got all your first line, your platoon leaders, and then you have all your soldiers. This is how you run an army. IATF's not interested in that. It's a good thing. The organization chart is 160 years old. We still use it today. And it's not wrong. Okay, it tells you who is who in the zoo, but it promotes the silo building. And it drags you away from a process approach and process thinking, if that makes sense. So coming back to this, yes, Anna, a process owner is accountable for his process. Not only responsible, accountable. And of course, an executive member can always overrule a decision for whatever reason. But responsibility and accountability, but we have not empowered them. They don't feel empowered because we run organizations mostly like an army. there is a manager or there's a vice president, there's a CEO that tells you what this is what I want to run. And I might exaggerate a little bit, but maybe I don't. Who knows? Yes, process owners shall be accountable for the process.
A question from Jacob. I think it was the first question today, and it's upvoted by quite a few people. So with regards to remote sites, how to integrate that part into the management review process and its respective scope?
It's more complex because you have an additional interface to the remote function. However, you still need to identify, you see, it's the same mindset. The remote function is a different department or function. The process is not interested. So this remote function is just a part of the process. He's a team member. If he's the driver, often in the corporate world, we have that where there is, in a corporate function, a program management or project management or business units. They're often, and they are the driver of the process. And then we have often in the plants, a launch team. So depending on what the process is, important is to understand who owns the process. And this guy is beating the drum. In the corporate world, we have the problem is that the plants are often sitting the process owners, but the remote functions in the corporate world, they believe they own it. So they tell the plant what I want and what I need. It's a complete wrong world. Mm-hmm. Because these central functions in the corporate world, the only reason why they get up in the morning is to support the operations in the plant. But they think differently. But this is what I expect from a process owner to come forward and push back. Okay. So remote makes it a little more tricky, but it follows the same principle. The process owner beats the drum. And but difficult in a corporate because they see it differently. And this is where relation management comes to the party. Emotional intelligence and relations management. That opens doors. If you only an email address in the plant, nothing's going to change. But the principle is the same, but a little bit more tricky. I would agree.
Yeah. Next one, I've got a twofold question. So first, Jackie, how do I get upper management involved 100% every day without begging, pleading, and crying internally? Jackie's asking, can we purchase Monday.com or is it proprietary within Kona? Jackie, just have a Google for Monday.com. There are plenty of project management type tools out there. This was in Kona's chosen one after experimenting with a number of different tools out there. So it's going to be a question of also what works best for you.
So how do you do that? The very first way to change that is that you stop begging and whining. That's the very first way. If you want to change anything, you need to change yourself first. So the quality managers and QMRs need to transform from the spoon feeder and babysitter for the whole organization to a very professionally demanding and pushing back force, understanding what is your responsibility and fight for your right. But the reason why we are in the situation that we are in now is there was an evolutionary process. So you cannot expect from Friday to Monday that everybody is following your whistle. But need to understand, you need to change first the approach. Begging, whining, giving up, frustrating, which I completely understand from a human standpoint of view. Totally understand. Brought us into the situation. We need to understand that full force responsibility we have from the quality system architectural and innovations drive. You got to stop it. It's got to be a controlled step down. Your process owners feel so comfortable having you guys around, so comfortable, because you babysit them. And do an audit and I ask the process owner and I say, quality manager, I put you on pause. You come when I allow you to ask. So please, process owner, you have my undivided attention. Which procedures apply in your process? And you can't even find it in the bloody database. I beg your pardon. But as long as you spoon feed them, they will never come forward because they feel sexy and comfortable. You got to change first. You need to understand the crucial ultimate responsibility you have to drive innovation from your current system to a QMS 2.0. You got to be the driver's seat, all right? But not in such a way that you do the job for the process owner. There's only two things where I need a QMS 2.0 quality manager, systems manager. I'm not talking about quality assurance, systems architect. We need you exactly for two jobs in the future. Two jobs. One is to drive the internal audit program. That's your baby. Secondly is you permanently work with associations, with automotive associations, with the Anconas of the world, with the DGQ and the TOBs of the world, and whoever's out there to permanently suck, and Google is your best friend, to permanently get out there what is new in the field, what drives innovation in my system. Those are the only two jobs. Drive innovation and drive your internal audit program. For anything else, I don't need you. Nobody needs you because the process owner will not come forward. If that makes sense. That's what you need to drive. Innovation and management review reports preparation. Oh my word, I don't know how much time you fire up here in those resources that go in there. That is insane. That is completely insane. For what? For ticking a box. Stop this. But do it wisely and use technology. We showed you one plan. There's different approaches. This is just our way. And we felt it's very, very, very modern, very innovative, and very interactive. People enjoy it. Darren, you're one of them. And find ways. What is new out there? You need a QMS 2.0. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think the last main question I'm going to pose here, you've actually touched on quite a bit of this. So Malebo was saying, how can we improve the management review if it's meeting the compliance requirements, but it's not user-friendly or easy to sustain? You already mentioned a few times, Hans, that change can be a concern. I think you've touched on this one, but any thoughts?
No, I think I elaborated on that. No, it's not very up to date the way we do it today. It's just an extremely resource, time-consuming process to prepare a report, and then we just run it through in an hour and 2 hours. That's and missing the point. Too much corrective actions, not enough QMS 2.0 activities. I think the solution is to bring technology into place. Make it an interactive process, okay, and run with it. But those management review reports I get to see today is the same one that I saw 28 years ago. We must be out of our minds. In 28 years,
impossible.
Nothing changed in the system, and it's still not effective. But nothing changed. So I need the QMS representatives and architects to drive that innovation. Come forward, find your voice. That's what you need to drive in the future, together with the audit. For nothing else, we need you. That's your thing, and that's a lot. That's a lot. If you do this job right, you guys are masterminds, champions.
Brilliant.
And Ancona potential. Oh.
Shameless. Hans, I think at this point, I've got one last question, and it's a huge one. So Koketsu, for your question, how do you choose a process owner? I would say, please go check out our website on ancona.org, the blog, you'll find it in the menu, and maybe start by checking out last year's webinar that we ran on implementing effective process ownership, and that might be a good starting point. And from there, knowing Hans and I, if we had to try and answer this question right now, we'd be on this call for another hour and a half, and we wouldn't even notice if there's no attendees, to be honest. So please do that, and drop me a note on marketing@encona.org if you feel like it's a topic we should explore in more depth for a future webinar.
What are the next topics?
Next one. So as I mentioned, we've actually already lined Hans up for 5 this year. We like to keep him busy. The next one is 11th of May. We've got how to conduct an effective reverse FMEA. And if anybody visits our website, encona.org, on the right-hand side, you'll find a little widget floating there saying webinars, where you'll be able to find the calendar for the year and register for any of the upcoming webinars. Certainly, as I've mentioned earlier, I send recordings as well as slides. When we do have slides, I'll usually send those out within a couple of days after a webinar. And you are free to distribute those. And yeah, give us a shout and any feedback on topics you would like us to discuss.
Cool.
I think that is it. Thank you very much, Hans. End of a long day.
Yeah, thank you, Taryn. Thanks for the invite. Thank you to everybody out there, and all the best.
Bye, everyone. See you at the next